don't think I've ever been this excited for a lore / theory crafting video in my whole existence. I am so excited. I'm beyond excited. Time to do a tea sip first because the tea is strong with this one. 10 out of 10 sip. The tea gets even stronger when the theories are good. What's going on, you guys? It's your huggable hipster here, and welcome back to Soulsborne Academy. Don't mind the hunter in the corner. They're just here for your protection. So excited. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 11, 20 out of 20 excited right now. Today, we're going to be discussing how Dark Souls 1 is connected to Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. And oh boy, there's a connection. Oh my gosh, I found a huge connection. There is the Cathedral of Manus Mitre, insert map fragment here. The Cathedral of Manus Mitre is such an interesting point in the game which you can actually access fairly early on in the DLC. When you get to this point, you get to talk to a DLC, they give you another little map fragment and it leads you over to this kind of one of three, might I add, shrines of the fingers, which we'll get into the fingers some other time, but it leads you into a shrine of the fingers. When you go to this shrine, you ring a bell. The bell gives you a talisman because you can collect talismans for these three shrines. I haven't made it to the other ones yet, but there is a talisman to be collected. You can get actually some pretty good talismans whenever you go to these shrines. Now, after you rung all the bells, there is a boss to be fought. I've not fought this boss yet, but there is a boss to be fought after you ring all these bells. I'm on the second bell right now. What's interesting about the Cathedral of Manus Mitre is the word choice that they use to title this cathedral. You have Manus Mitre. Manus was the father of the abyss. In the Dark Souls 1 DLC, Artorias of the Abyss. And then you have Mitre. I did some digging and I did some researching, and Mitre is the Proto-European word for mother. And Manus is the word for hand. So the cathedral is literally titled the Cathedral of the Hand of the Mother. Oh, this is so exciting. I love it. It's so exciting. I just love, this is what I live for. This is the shit that I breathe in daily. There's so many different connections that we have from Manus to now the Elden Ring DLC Shadows of the Erdtree. And if you look closely at the character of Manus, you see that he has like this gigundo hand, which maybe he's being worshipped in this time and place thousands of years later in the DLC, which wouldn't surprise me because he was also kind of not worshipped, but some of his soul broke off into bits in Dark Souls 2. Now, to reference Dark Souls 2 for a second, Manus was still a very important, crucial part of that game. Even though he was killed, there were chunks of his soul and spirit that were put into like these minuscule fragments across each boss and the characters themselves. It would not surprise me at all if Manus was still alive and well and present in this Elden Ring universe, because Manus is the father of the abyss. In a sense, he is the father of evil and what is evil incarnate to a degree. Because you have Alana, which is the embodiment of Manus's wrath. You have Alsana, which is the embodiment of Manus's fear. You have Nadia, which is the embodiment of Manus's solitude. And the Chandra, which is the tiniest fragment of Manus and the embodiment of his want. I'll put the link down in the description below for you guys to read that Dark Souls wiki as well. It's fascinating because you have these shards of Manus that are left, and you have these kind of fragments of what you have of the human's dark soul, and then you have Manus's true deep dark soul that corrupted even the human version of himself to become what he is now, which is the father of the abyss. Even Artorias couldn't beat him. So it's, you know, it's kind of shocking that we see the story of the Tarnished and how the Tarnished end up defeating this creature called Manus. And then you see across all of the games, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, even bits of Dark Souls 3, and now Elden Ring, he still has an impact on the story and how it flows. It's absolutely fascinating, and you see all these influences from Proto-European, from Latin, obviously, because Latin has such a big influence on the language and linguistical structure of all of the words that are being used in every single game in the Souls franchise and Souls-like franchise. So it wouldn't surprise me that down the road, at some point, there will be a game that will expand upon Manus and have him as the focal point, the kind of the return of evil, if you will. Which also, if you think about it, he's also linked to the symbol of Hades that we see within the game. It's all of those scout tree fragments, or, you know, skibbity-boppity-boo, however you want to call them. You know, he's linked to that because we see that Manus kind of has this Hades-like quality about him, and I'll explain further. Now, it states here in the Dark Souls wiki that at one point Manus managed to take possession of his lost pendant, kidnapping Princess Dusk and taking her to his abyss. Where have we seen a similar story like that before? I know where. Hades and Persephone. The story of Hades and Persephone is one of lust and one of this power dynamic that ripples through the entirety of I'm going to say history, but the historical prevalence of what the story is. Now, even though Manus and Princess Dusk did not rule together as Persephone and Hades did, there is that representation that we see of Hades in Manus throughout the game. And Hades is also represented in the places where we get the Scow Tree blessings. If you look over here, actually, I did this before when I was breaking down the trailer. This is the sign of Hades, and I find it so incredibly fascinating that Hades is within Manus. Hades is now in the Scow Tree blessings, because if we look at the Scow Tree blessings, it isn't found in the main game. It's only in the DLC, and it doesn't work if you go back to the main game. Now, this might be a bit of a stretch, but bear with me on this. Scow Tree blessings are underneath the Hades symbol for the majority of the game, where we have to pick them up in order to kind of use them in that realm to be able to boost our power and tolerance to what is within that world. The Scow Tree blessings could be comparative to the pomegranate seeds, which were eaten by Persephone. And Persephone is associated with the pomegranate in the story of her abduction by Hades. The pomegranate seeds bind her to that world, as do the Scow Tree blessings. The Scow Tree blessings are kind of a way of saying these can only be used in this world. They can't be used in the main story or the main game of Elden Ring, but only in the DLC, as are the pomegranate seeds only utilized in the underworld. But you guys, that was today's video. If you guys enjoyed it and you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the Wiki world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.